I mean, LinkedIn is useful to look at simply because you get so much stuff and you can sort of
Mm.
pick stuff up. And I always try and look at the background of the people that put it up. Is this worth having a debate around?
Well,
Where, where,
it's always a subjective view, even if it's an
yeah.
organization, it's a
Yeah,
subjective view.
it
So
is.
I always
And
bear that in mind.
we're trying to sort of provide a level of oh,
Sanity.
sanity. Yes.
Hello and welcome. My name is Richard Simon. I am Cloud Therapist. This is the May 2026 episode of Cloud State of Play. Now, it's not always easy to express oneself, whether in written form or in a video or even just in spoken words. But here's someone who's always putting articles and opinions out there, even though I don't even get a chance to read them. It's the plurific Paul Bevan.
Oh, yes. I thought for a minute you were going to say I could talk for England or something like
You
that.
could do that as well. And it's the season of the World Cup. So, we're there. We're there. How are you doing, Paul?
Yeah, I'm all right. Thank you very much. Yes.
Excellent. Are you
Keeping going. Sorry?
are you keeping well in the summer weather?
Yes. Yes. I mean, it's hot for May, isn't it?
It is. It is indeed. Yeah, so we're expecting kind of 30 plus record temperatures, I think, certainly in my area
Yeah.
of the country. So should be interesting. So we have a great lineup of topics for you. 3 topics again for this month. You'll be learning a lot about AI tokens, FinOps, cloud costs, types of virtualization, and probably lots of other stuff that Paul and I will come up with. So make sure you stay tuned for the whole episode to pick up on everything. Maybe then you can quiz all your friends and colleagues about some of the virtualization types and things like that we're going to be talking about. But before we do that, before we get to the topics, yes, you've guessed it, here's a quick channel message for you. Did you know that 80% of you watching right now aren't subscribed yet to this channel? Come on, guys, we can do better, surely. So please hit subscribe and the notification bell. It costs nothing, but it really helps me to keep making more videos for you. All right, back to the therapy session. So our topics for this month are, number 1, tokenomics. This is a relatively new term that's kind of appeared on the scene, and it's kind of describing token economics. So we'll see what the reaction is from various parties around that, especially the FinOps Foundation, and we'll kind of define what tokenomics means. It's a bit of a mouthful, but essentially it's around token economics. That's the idea. So that's our first topic. Second topic is types of virtualization. Apparently, there's lots of different types of virtualization. So we'll explore all of those. We'll explore all the kind of contents of that. It's based on a post that somebody's put out. So we'll have a look at all the types of virtualization and see whether we agree with them or not. But that's an interesting topic. So we'll try and define that for you as well. And the third topic is Mandiant's M Trends Cybersecurity Report 2026. So this is done in association with Google, I believe, and it includes kind of all the details around sort of cybersecurity and sort of from their survey and report that they've done. So, Paul, shall we get going with the first one on tokenomics, the art of token economics? Now, this was based on an article that you shared with me from The Economist. Thank you very much for sharing that. An interesting one. It's actually very timely as well, because this kind of token economics topic has come up quite a lot. The Gen AI space seems to be kind of lurching from one crisis to another at the moment. Doesn't seem to be kind of going forward in a sort of a positive way. So tokens, yeah. Well, I'll give a little definition of tokens, but kind of what was your take on the article? Why did you select the article?
Um, I I came at it from a slightly different direction,
Hmm.
in the sense that I got somewhat concerned, I think, about the huge amounts of investment going on and whether they were actually happening.
Hmm.
That's number one. And obviously the circular nature of some of those investments, between Nvidia and the various hyperscalers and the way in which they're buying in a sort of circular environment. You think, where's the money coming from? I was coming at it from a point of view of I don't want to start the bubble and the boom and bubble bursting type approach, but
Mm.
nonetheless, I was concerned. So when I saw the Economist article and I got into it in some depth, it gave me quite an interesting view on the sort of what I call the business side as opposed to the technology side of the debate around tokens and
Mm.
and whether people are reining it back in or whether they're not worried about tokens at the moment. And I
Yeah.
think, as I said to you, I think both are true at the moment. Some are reining in and quite a few, and we can discuss who those are and why those are. But from my point of view, it sort of highlights, and it is prompted me to think about a whole range of other things of what happens if um, the vast sums of money that have been put into AI,
Mm.
if token costs start to fall fairly rapidly, what will that do to the model? All those sort of questions are coming. We
Yes.
can discuss that. So that's where it
Yes.
came from. And then you very helpfully have given me some much more technology-oriented pointers.
Yes.
And I think that there's some really interesting, you know, conundrums or
Juxtapositions. Yes.
juxtapositions, I think is
Yes.
the right
Is that the
word.
right word? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I thought
That,
I'll throw it in there. It's kind of a bit of a big word for me, but there you go. I'm a simple kind of guy. Yeah. So let's do. And I agree with you. I think that's all kind of coming to a head, but it's there is those opposing juxtapositioning kind of points that I
yeah.
shared with you, and we will circle back to those. But let's kind of just talk a little bit about tokens. So tokens are just kind of quick definition for people who don't know what tokens are. Basically, the basic building blocks that AI uses to process and understand data. So kind of AI breaks text that we put in from our prompts and things like that into smaller chunks. So they could be a single character, a grammar symbol, or part of a word. And they kind of, a token roughly corresponds to about 4 characters or 0.75 parts of a word. So roughly speaking, it's kind of a word if you want to call it that. But if you want to be precise, 100 tokens will basically mean 75 words. That's kind of how AI breaks down words that we put into prompts and then stores them and searches them and predicts them and makes sense of them and tries to give us a coherent answer back. That's kind of really the task that the AI models have. So how text is kind of digested and stored, it's kind of essentially that's what, like I said, makes it easy to search and retrieve the text. So as we said, throughout sort of context and prompting windows, that's kind of the prompt engineering stuff that folks do. Words are turned into input tokens, and then the result, the output, is turned into an output token, basically. So the reason why we're talking about tokens and token economics or tokenomics is because developers, and most of us who are kind of using it, or those who are paying for sort of the paid version of talking to chatbots and AI and so on, they're billed by the token per token rather than power used or a sort of a set subscription or something like that. They're actually billed by per token that they actually use. So if you actually put in the words "thank you" or "please" anywhere in your prompt, you're actually costing more. That's actually, you're being charged for that those extra tokens. This has led to the point. What has it led to recently, Paul? Uber, the likes of Uber, which is I think the probably most famous kind of story, eating.
And Meta. Yeah. And
Yeah.
Meta. Yeah.
And Meta eating their kind of having a token burnout, if you like, if that's a, I'm not sure that's a word, token burnout, or eating up all their allocation, their annual allocation for tokens within like the course of a few months, like 2 or 3 months or something like that. And obviously this is because of the proliferation of things like, a Microsoft Copilot. Now we're getting AI agents coming in as well, which obviously use their own tokens and kind of go off and do, things by themselves and so on. So a lot of things have kind of maybe converged recently, maybe the space of last 6 months or so, maybe even a little bit longer. And I'll again say why longer in a minute, because there was another article that, or a piece of research that came out regards to that actually a long time ago. So all these things have kind of converged, I think, to this point. And now people are saying, and just sticking to that, not talking about the technical solutions or the technical sort of juxtapositions that I shared with you, but that's kind of what's caused this sort of panic around, token economics and things like that. So that's kind of really where, it's come from. It's kind of tokens are not necessarily, but because people are built on them, like I said, they're not necessarily yet, but they could kind of become like an international currency. There could be a kind of a token drought, if you like, going forward in the future. If anybody's going to reuse that, you heard it here first, folks. So a token drought. Well, that's enterprise. If they're going to be kind of reducing the number of token usage and stuff like that, there might well be a token drought, or that we might even see a token wars. Maybe, who knows? There might be a token wars on the horizon. Interesting.
I think the thing to say about that is that a token is a token is a token. And how the hyperscalers or anybody else who's going to be using these and doing these is you apply a monetary value to the token. So your token wars will be really, it's almost like sort of competition will drive the price down of each unit of each token. But a token is a token is a token. One of the things, you've got to, it's a bit like a slot machine. You pull a handle, put your pound coin or your token in if you bought it, pull the handle, and you get a result. And then you do it again and again and again, and that's really what's going on. And of course, there's this huge gap between, the different models and what you pay for each one. So if you're going to go for the latest version of Claude 4.7 or whatever it is, the actual cost per token is pretty large. And don't forget that the output is about 3 to 5 times more expensive than the input.
And it could be kind of short-lived, and we'll kind of get to maybe why we think that. But just as a quick joke, will there be kind of illegal dealing of tokens on our streets? Who knows, Paul? Perhaps, you could see a headline saying something like, 3 members of the Free Token Society were arrested last night trying to infiltrate the highly secured building of the Federal Tokens Reserve. or the Bank of England tokens, maybe. Who knows? Sorry, just being a bit facetious there, but
I think you have to look at tokens a little bit like you would do chips in a casino.
Yeah.
It costs you. You have to buy the tokens.
Yeah.
But they're not physical.
Yeah.
They're not and just yes. Might there be might there be a sort of exchange trading mart for unused tokens? If you've bought tokens, do you think I could trade? And particularly if there's a shortage of tokens, will somebody buy up tokens and sell them on for a greater sum of money? All those sort of things potentially.
Exactly. Yeah.
But
I mean, like I said, so this is kind of, like I said, because of the recent sort of and sudden proliferation of things like Microsoft Copilot, people having sort of ChatGPT Pro, Claude Codex or Claude Code rather, I should say. Codex is the OpenAI one. So Claude Code, OpenAI Codex and things like that. So lots of people are. It's got to a point, kind of an intersection point where you're using a lot more of AI now, and more people are using AI, and more sort of in an en masse sort of way. While obviously at the same time the models are getting better and better as well. So it's that kind of intersection point. And obviously, as we said, AI agents kind of have autonomy, so they can go and perform tasks on our behalf autonomously and so on. And again, they're burning that as well. So things like, I think I've heard things like token burn, token maxing, which is actually using your tokens deliberately, using up all your tokens, for some reason or another. But yeah, all those words and loads of other ones, I think, all coming down the line. We're hearing a lot more of that. So yeah, I had kind of 2 or 3 points to make around this sort of whole thing, Paul. But was there anything else specifically that you wanted to talk about before we get to those other posts that I shared with you in this space? Was there anything else you wanted to touch on?
I just think, I don't know whether you're intending later on in the conversation to bring in, the FinOps Foundation and what they're doing,
Yes.
So that's, but it's, I think what we're seeing is 2 things. Firstly, is a level of maturity starting to come into the debate around value of what we're trying to get, which I think is why some people are pushing back against tokens, and others are not worried about it yet, because I think there's a maturity going on. But I also think there's a long way to go in terms of getting that right. And we'll wait until we get to the bit around the foundations, the AI token foundation, or whatever it is that FinOps Foundation is now put together.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead. Sorry, finish your.
To me, this the FinOps Foundation is really management accounting for the IT age. I get slightly wound up by FinOps, I must admit.
I mean, I slightly disagree in kind of the maturity thing. There's nothing mature about how people are conducting AI and sort of cloud native and stuff like that. If there was any maturity, we would see a lot better results.
I think what we're seeing, and you shared the thing what the GitOps was doing,
yes,
in terms of the Headroom project. That is a sign of, we're in a state of sort of almost chaos at the moment, in terms of we're just throwing resource at this thing, and we're throwing it both in terms of money and processes and God knows what. Let's see if we can make things more effective and optimized. And I think, that particular piece, what's happening with, making models more efficient is a level. That's what I meant by the level of maturity. Not that the people who are, if you like, at the sharp end of, in enterprises thing, have become mature about how they use, or even in places like Meta, become mature about how they use tokens. But I think there is an underpinning set of activities to try and optimize that environment.
I mean, I think I'm okay with that. I just, like I said, overall, I'm not convinced that there's any maturity at all. I mean, and it's staggering to actually, for me to be saying that, because I would like it to be mature. But like I said, as we started this topic, everything in this space is a crisis. There's nothing in there that's coming out that is actually positive and comes out and works out and everybody loves it. And apart from the beginning of this whole movement, the Gen AI movement, late 2022, early 2023, everything else has kind of been a panic. And it's been kind of almost a knee-jerk response to something else, either within it or outside of this kind of affected it. But anyway, so you were right. So one of the topics that I shared with you, or one of the points in this token economic space was the FinOps Foundation announced the Tokenomics Foundation. So this was at their recent FinOps X conference in the US. So the Tokenomics Foundation is obviously going to be focusing on token economics, but it's kind of very light on how is going to be doing that. I'm not even sure they know what they're doing really with that yet. But this was something. There's a link on this. We'll drop you all the links and stuff on the thing. I'm not sure we can link Paul's article that kind of brought in this particular topic originally from The Economist, but certainly the announcements from the FinOps Foundation at their FinOps X conference around the Tokenomics Foundation. I'm still having to slow my brain down to remember how to say the word and not screw up the word of tokenomics. But yeah, okay. So I mean, like I said, there's a website, so you can check that out. There's some early statements on the website about kind of what this is going to be about. What was your just view on that specifically, Paul? Because again, I mean, for me, this is like a sort of a panic button being pressed, as we'll see with the other evidence here. It's maybe a little bit too early, but go ahead.
Well, two things. Firstly, I think it was the Linux Foundation that sort of suggested this Tokenomics Foundation because they wanted to have, quote unquote, an open sort of was it not open API, but basically create an open system for tokens. Well, I'm thinking a token is a token. I'm back to my token is a token is a token. How the hell can you make that more complicated? It's very simple. This is a token. It's 0.75 of a word.
Yeah.
Or there's other ways you've got to deal with it. But the one area where tokens cause a problem is on the outputs, is the fact that you're dealing with a probabilistic output.
Yeah.
You put your input in, which is very, and then it's, unless you're very, very, very strict with your inputs, it's a bit like the please and thank you.
Yeah.
You will get you won't be able to say exactly how much you're going to spend in the output. And this is where the headroom came in. I was fascinated by this term terseness. Mm-hmm. You had a sort of proxy that looked at the input and actually added almost automatically in the stream, be terse, don't repeat things, don't, and literally trying to ensure that, so you're basically making up for the fact that people are still not good at really getting tight inputs. The inputs are difficult.
Are you trying to say we're too polite, Paul? Is that it?
No,
please and thank you. After all these years of our parents teaching us please and thank yous, now we have to drop those when we're talking to AI.
No, it's not so much you have to, you be very polite putting it in, but we are not specific enough in terms of the prompts we give. We talked about prompt engineering.
Yeah.
But the whole point, the way in which we interact, we use words differently, and we rely on the context that's going on at the time for our brains to do the translation. Actually, that translation costs you an awful lot of money when you're talking about tokens, because you're getting extra words in there. Each one costs you a lot of money, and the more words it throws in. So having something that effectively compresses what the large language model can actually respond to, and so it isn't going to repeat things to you and say, hey, what a great idea. I love the way ChatGPT said, that's a really good idea. Yeah, thank you for that. I made me feel really good that that an AI has
Yes.
told me that
It's
was a
kind of
great idea.
buttering you up. Yeah.
And it's costing me money, So there's a level of that going on, and so the that headroom project that in GitOps in the GitHub was interesting from that point of view, and it just shows that we're learning as we go along. We are,
Yes.
and that is the problem. We're learning as we go along, and it's moving
Yeah.
so fast. Hence, everything looks chaotic. It's
Yes.
moving so fast. We're learning as we go along.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that is the reason. So let me just read that a little bit from this tokenomics sort of website, the Tokenomics Foundation. So it says AI token economics is the emerging discipline of converting energy and capital into AI tokens, consuming those tokens efficiently to enable intelligence and drive value. That's a draft from their announcement. Linux Foundation, the non-profit organization enabling mass innovation through open source, today announced the intent to launch the Tokenomics Foundation. Tokenomics Foundation will bring together large token consumers with hardware providers, frontier model providers, neo clouds, hyperscalers, blah, blah, blah. What else? The Tokenomics Foundation Governing Board will help set industry direction and deploy funds to support the project. A technical committee will develop open specifications, benchmarks, and frameworks. Why does it matter? Why do tokenomics matter? As AI becomes embedded into products, workflows, platforms, and decision-making systems, every interaction carries a cost and offers an opportunity for value optimization. So I think that's, as I said, I think lots of things are coming to a head. Enterprises, enabling Microsoft Copilots for their staff, people experimenting with AI agents, the coding side of agents, of models rather getting very clever and getting very good. So that's proliferated as well. And so on. So there's a lot more on the website, guys. So we'll just drop you the link to that. Now, I wanted to get to these other points very quickly because we're just interest of time. The second one was the cost of tokens may well be about to drop thanks to pure economics of scale. So this was actually a post by a chap called Jose Luis Flores. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Apologies if I'm not. He's an AI advisor to enterprise leaders on things like governance and AI and stuff like that. So my question here was, has the FinOps Foundation jumped the gun on token economics? So he put out a post on LinkedIn. Again, we'll supply with the details. But basically, he said the Hopper chip from NVIDIA was producing 90 tokens per second per GPU, which amounted to about $4.20 per million tokens. So that was the cost per million tokens on a Hopper chip. The Blackwell chip is 6,000 tokens per second per GPU, which translates to 0.12, I guess that's 12 cents per million tokens. So clearly from one generation to the next of GPUs, the cost of tokens has dramatically, I don't know what 50 times more out? No, okay, that's different. So I mean, it's dramatically reduced the cost. So a year from now, whenever NVIDIA launch their next one after the Vera chips and so on, it'll probably be even less than that cost. So this is why I'm saying, is token economics a flash in the pan? Has the FinOps Foundation jumped the gun on token economics?
And the answer is no, they haven't. I mean, you can argue, do we actually need another foundation? And this is really just part of, cost accounting, management accounting, all those sort of issues. And if you want FinOps, but having something else is almost irrelevant in my mind. But I think there's a danger in thinking just because we're getting far more efficient or processors that can handle more tokens per second or whatever it is, the cost of those processes is so much greater. What was the cost of a Hopper versus a Blackwell? You've got to include that in so if the cost gets driven down simply on the basis of the fact that the processor can do, far more tokens per minute, per second, whatever, the number in old money, the MIPS capability and goes through the roof. But actually the cost of of getting a Blackwell is so great, and if the large language model providers have to spend millions or billions on new processors each time, yes, you will over time get cost improve, or you will get, price improvements, but it won't be as dramatic as you think because they're having to pay off their capital. It's eventually, this is the boom or bubble piece. If they don't, eventually the investors say, you're never making a profit. Stop.
Yeah, for me, I don't think it's that. I think that's not the bit that's going to determine it. Maybe it will be because when you buy those chips, it's a one-off purchase of that chip. Yes, it's a particularly large amount if you're a hyperscaler, whatever you're doing, or you're an OpenAI or someone like that. And then the chips, starts paying back for itself almost immediately as soon as you put it into production. And obviously it does that over and over and over, a million times, a billion times a day, as it's being used. So therefore, if the Blackwell is cheaper to produce, per token than the previous generation or generations, then that's already starting to pay back for itself, as well as reducing the cost of per tokens. Sorry, go on.
The terminology is not quite right. Is it paying back from day one? Yes, it's providing revenue, but at what point has it paid back the original investment? And how often do you have to keep reinvesting? And so I don't think it's as a sort of straight a line as you're making it out to be. I think there will be huge sort of discussions internally to them, to the people about the amount of interest they're having to pay on the money that they're borrowing effectively to make this one work, and on all those sort of things that says it's not a simple equation that as you get new processes coming through, it will fall, but it won't fall quite the way you think.
So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to avoid what you're doing, which is blowing it up to kind of the whole investment and then the eventual bubble, the perceived bubble, and so on. I'm just trying to focus on the cost itself, as per this post is trying to say by this chap, because that is kind of the core of what's happening. And yes, there's maybe a ripple effect on other things, and that might be the case, but because you're kind of starting the gun on getting your money back as soon as that chip is in production, that would, I'm not saying it's going to pay for itself overnight. It's going to pay for itself eventually, but it's not necessarily going to be, put it into production today and it's paid for itself tomorrow. That's not necessarily the case. I'm just saying it is starting to pay back for itself, and it's paying back for itself with the efficiencies of the current generation, in comparison with the previous generation of chips. The only thing, the find the ointment in this is the fact that potentially our usage, our hunger for more tokens might be kind of going in parallel, growing in parallel with some kind of headroom in between, but growing in parallel on that chart with as much our efficiency is growing in the amount of tokens that these chips can produce. So the more efficient they are, the more we go, oh, we can do some more stuff with them. Fantastic. Well, let's throw some more code in there and let's get this AI, agent to do that and get that robot to go and clean the bedroom and, that type of stuff. right? And I think that might be the downer on this. So no sooner the chip has caught on and kind of given you a better and more efficient way to do it, that we've actually slurped up that efficiency to do something else with it.
I think you could be, well, absolutely right. But you go back to the original, article in the Economist and versus, some research that we've seen from places like Arete that suggest they're not seeing the sort of pushback. They're not seeing the overspend, if you like, or the people concerned about spending because they haven't really got started yet. So that plays into your yes, we might need to it'll just grow usage. But it comes back to we haven't worked out the value of what's happening. And this is where I think Uber particularly and Meta got themselves into trouble, was they were just saying, oh, develop, because they're coders, just keep developing, and it'll work. And it's, oh God, they ran up one hell of a bill and they're having to think about it now because they've already got a load of other commitments that they've made, in terms of getting this stuff off the ground. So whereas most enterprises are going, well, hold on, show me the value. Tell me what the value is going to be, and then I'll give you the money to go do it. And I think, but I agree with you. If the unit cost of tokens comes right down low, people will use more. But as long as they can show what the value is going to be, and that's where this mismatch comes in terms of, are people reining in or are people not bothered about it? People are not bothered about it on one level because they're not doing enough of it.
Yeah, no, I think there is definitely scope in the meantime to be monitoring this stuff and throwing it both into, I would have really thought it's a policy as code and an observability kind of thing that you need to apply to token economics and not a FinOps, because FinOps always tells you after. It's never, as far as I know, it never alerts you during the thing or before you do this thing. So you could have that Uber developer could have hit their max tokens, but they'll still use some more, and only then does the FinOps platform say, oh, that guy he's actually, he's maxed out on his tokens for this month. He's actually used over his budget for tokens this month. But it's not going to be, it's not FinOps is a kind of an afterthought. It's not an after, it's an after the event. Whereas things like policy as code and observability, at least policy as code tries to stop you from doing it, and observability tells you when you're doing it during that particular period and not after that period. So I would have thought it's more something to attach to policy as code and governance type of activity, as well as observability to monitor you while you're doing it, or you've now gone over your token limits, rather than after, when you've actually have spent and gone over, and now you're being told, we've actually gone over.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
So I think maybe Uber and whoever else has kind of got caught in that hasn't put this into policy as code, and certainly hasn't put it into their observability. But just one more topic on this, well, actually two, but one more topic on this, which was the other post that I picked up on and I shared with you, Paul, around this Headroom project, which you pre-mentioned earlier, which is a GitHub project. Again, there's a link on this. There was a post on it, so we'll drop you all the links. So actually, it was Eduardo Audax from AWS who pointed this out. So shout out to Eduardo. Thank you for your post. So it's a GitHub project, and somebody's created something called Headroom, which basically, he's a Netflix engineer. That's it. And basically what it does is it promises to cut your token usage by anywhere between 60 to 95%. That's quite an efficiency there. So how does it do that? It compresses everything your AI agent reads before it hits the model. It's 100% local. Your data never leaves your machine. It's also reversible. So originals are cached, and the large language model can retrieve them on demand. It works on all of the major platforms, so Claude and Cursor and what have you. And there's lots of stuff thrown in there. So I won't go through all the details, but you can actually read the post from Eduardo Audax. But yeah, so this is kind of responding to this, again, to this token economics sort of thing. So obviously the FinOps Foundation has responded with a sub foundation. Then we've had this post about chips getting obviously more efficient, and therefore the cost of tokens being cheaper. And now we've got this kind of compression sort of tool or ability that you can attach to your input and output from the models as well. So I think these are kind of maybe better responses than, like I said, what the FinOps Foundation is really doing. I mean, for me, like I said, by the time you sort of hits your FinOps tool, it's too late. You've already spent it. The event has happened. I'd rather have it as a policy as code or a observability condition, not a FinOps condition. I mean, I'm happy for the FinOps kind of thing to round things up at the end of the month and then give me the report, or for that report to go to the CFO. But in the meantime, I'd rather stop that person from, if they've gone over their, remit or their budget for the month of those tokens, then they should be stopped. They shouldn't be allowed to continue and break through that barrier or limit, I should say. So yeah, anyway, but it's interesting that this is also kind of culminated this, and these all, by the way, all sort of came on my feed more or less at the same time, which was quite interesting. They all kind of appeared at the more or less the same time. I don't know if you had anything else to add to the headroom one, Paul. Was there anything that you picked up on?
No. I mean, from my perspective, it was what I see almost like a natural evolution of management trying to get to grips with, or in this case, the technicians trying to get to grip with runaway costs.
Yeah.
It's part of what I see as that maturing of the environment. It's not a mature environment; it is the maturing. I mean,
maturing. Yeah.
We're running out of time, so I won't give the sort of analog version of that, which I saw another time maybe.
Yeah.
There is an one, but it was an analog version.
Yeah, there is. I mean, yeah, there was another report from Deloitte, which actually came out 4 months ago, which is why I was saying this has been brewing for 6 months plus now, called the Pivot to Tokenomics. So again, another really good report. We'll drop the link for you in the description. Lots more about token economics in that. Hey, if you are enjoying the content, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. That would really help me out. Thank you. Paul, let's move on to our second topic, which was types of virtualization. Now, I'm not against any of the sort of stuff that was in this chart by this chap who put out the chart. And apologies, I don't have the name of the person who actually made this post, but again, we'll drop in the description. There's a nice sort of chart. We'll try and show that on the screen so you guys can see it. The only things that I took exception to were operating system virtualization, data virtualization, and cloud virtualization. So the OS virtualization, not really my kind of definition. The OS is always a kernel and kind of user space. So if you have one kernel to many user spaces, that would be a proper sort of OS virtualization. His description of OS virtualization didn't really make much sense to me, so I wasn't really kind of in agreement with that. And I'm not sure why you'd kind of want to do that anyway for an operating system. I'll get your thoughts in a minute. Let me just kind of get these ones out. And then the other one, data virtualization. Well, again, I mean, unless you're kind of doing that with what we just spoke about in the other topic about tokens or metadata being stored, you're not really virtualizing the data. You might be virtualizing the medium that it's stored on. So yeah, you could have like volumes and virtual volumes and all that kind of stuff that you can, how you carve your storage these days, and even in a more traditional SAN sort of configuration, but you're not really kind of virtualizing the data itself. And then the third one, I completely disagree with. I mean, the cloud is a virtualization platform. There's nothing else to virtualize. You already have infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, software as a service. So there's nothing else to virtualize beyond the cloud. So really, cloud is not a traditional type of virtualization either. So the word virtualization doesn't necessarily kind of fit into it, unless you kind of use an instance or a virtual machine in the cloud. Yes, you could say that's kind of like a virtual machine as we had with, VMware and vSphere and stuff like that in the data center. But the cloud is the cloud. It's not necessarily a sort of a virtualization layer, certainly not a hypervisor. What was your take on all of the stuff in the chart?
Confused, I think, probably more than anything else.
Okay.
I think you've described it fairly well. I mean, the idea of trying to, fit everything there into a virtualization debate. A lot of it was software defined storage.
Yeah, that's okay.
It's not virtualization.
Yeah.
Okay, networks. I got network function virtualization. Okay, that's fair enough. I had a little problem with desktop virtualization.
Oh.
It was.
That's the old VDI.
Yeah, virtual desktop in
old Citrix stuff.
Yes, and then it got down to thin clients, and you think, well, that's just you're putting a terminal emulator on a PC.
That's pretty much what desktop virtualization is.
It is,
so Raspberry Pi, and you run a browser in it.
Yeah, you're right. It was sort of I think he was overreached himself by trying to make everything virtualized. I mean, it's simple. I don't think I've got I'm not technical enough to look at each individual layer and go, oh, yeah, that's not right. But I absolutely agree on data. I think that's that you're not virtualizing the data.
I mean,
yes, again, software-defined storage, but that's at the hardware level.
Correct. That's the medium that stores the data, but not the data itself.
You're not the data itself.
You're not virtualizing the data.
How can you virtualize data?
You can't.
It's not. It's.
I mean, you could really kind of say, well, tokenization is a kind of virtualization because you're not kind of using the original word anymore. You got a token for it, and then when you put it in a vector database, you got the kind of the symbol for that, for that word or definition or something. So you could kind of squeeze that in there, but very, very difficult to do that.
Therein lies the road to madness.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. No, it was somebody trying to be clever, and unfortunately, I'd love to know the prompt he put in to get that chart to come out, because that's the problem, isn't it? We know that's an AI chart. They all look alike now. I mean, that's the problem. Every chart looks the flipping same.
Yeah, exactly.
And you think, okay, what prompt did he put in to get that? So an AI will respond accordingly.
Yes.
Yeah,
it's only as clever as you are. I think as clever as your prompt, I guess. And it's not AGI yet. It's not like I say, no, look, Mr. Virtualization chart guy, you're stupid or you're silly. Here's how you do that. That's what AGI will do. It'll get very arrogant, I think.
Well,
no, that's not into virtualization.
It will, at some point, it ought to come back. AI ought to come back and say, actually, that's not virtualization.
Yeah.
And it won't at the moment,
But no, I think it'll just take the arrogant route and just say, no, that's not how you do it. This is how you do it. Here's your chart. Now go and post this.
I have very little more to say about that. I just, it's just virtual. No, not everything's virtualized.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, there's a number of things here that you've got server virtualization. That's fine. Network virtualization. I'm a little bit disappointed because you mentioned network function virtualization. I don't think it's mentioned that on the.
It's not.
It's not on the chart, which is.
It's not on the chart.
Kind of telco virtualization, if you like, or network function virtualization. That would have been nice. for the telco market, because they've been at it for a decade plus now.
Yeah, and
Like I
that
said,
is, and that
yeah.
is different than software-defined networks.
Oh
The
yeah,
network function virtualization is different from software.
absolutely it is.
But in
Yeah,
other places, they seem to have conflated the two. You think, oh,
yeah,
in the charts,
yeah. It's the what they call it? There's a what's the our hated term right now for clouds? Hybrid
Neo-cloud.
multi-cloud. No,
Huh?
hybrid. No, not that one. The other one, hated one. Hybrid multi-cloud. And you go, there is no such thing. Please, marketing, stop.
Yeah.
Hybrid multi-cloud. Yeah, but I mean, VDI desktop virtualization. Yeah, that's fine. I got no problem with that. Regardless of how kind of that looks. I mean, both AWS and Microsoft still continue to give it some attention. And then app virtualization. Uh, uh, you're not really virtualizing the app again. It's the underlying vessel that holds the app that you're virtualizing, not the app itself. So yes, you could containerize it. You can put it in a virtual machine. You can run it as a thin app or whatever. Sure, but the app stays the app. You're not really kind of chunking the app or taking. Maybe microservices would be a kind of a
The minute you
virtualization.
said that, I thought, yeah, microservices,
Yeah, but has he got that in there? No, he hasn't.
no.
Okay.
Yeah. And
So,
is
but
that
anyway,
genuine virtualization or just a very different way of
yes,
constructing your application?
yes. So we're not always posting stuff here that we like. we sometimes post stuff here that we absolutely don't really like. And it's up to our lovely audience to make up their minds. So link is in the description for this chart, and good luck, guys. Hey, if you are enjoying the content, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. That would really help me out. Thank you. So our third topic is called Mandiant M-Trends Cybersecurity Report 2026. As I said earlier, this is done in association with Google Cloud Security, as well as the Cybersecurity Hub. Now, I'm not really a fan of the term cybersecurity as such. I kind of just find that, first of all, there's two different spellings for it. So one is cyber and security as two separate words, which I think is the British spelling, and then there's the combined spelling cybersecurity, which I think is the kind of the international, the American sort of spelling. Second of all, it's almost, I mean, for me, that I don't know about you, Paul, and we'll kind of get into that in a minute, but for me, cybersecurity as a term has kind of almost become meaningless because you don't really know where you stand and what people are talking about when they say cybersecurity. It kind of, hides a multitude of sins. And, is it kind of, are we talking about cloud security? Are we talking about end user kind of computing security? Is it the, identity and access management? Is it data security, or is it all of the above? And when you talk to vendors, I think in this space, I just find it very difficult to kind of understand, but which layer of security are you coming in on? So let me just put this out, and then you kind of come in now and tell me what you feel about that.
Well, I'm not a security specialist expert. In fact, since my last foray into security in Unisys back, which would have been in about 2001 to
Yeah.
2002, I really haven't followed it other than being aware of it, the issues around it. So my sense around cybersecurity was I was quite happy with the term, because it is cover, it's all of the above, where you said it is all of the above. It is a catch-all, but I think it's, but clearly people don't understand the broader implications of it. And this report is really, for somebody like me who's aware of security issues generally, how important they are, but with no real understanding of what's entailed and how difficult it's becoming these days. This report is a real eye-opener.
Yes, I mean, generally speaking, if you go to something like in a tech show London or some of the more, specialist sort of events, and some of them are actually just called cybersecurity, XYZ, whatever type of event. Those tend to kind of talk more about sort of, pen testing. They talk about, sort of phishing scams, DDoS attacks, and things like that, right? That's kind of the sort of overall security that they talk about. But clearly, there's more to security. And I'm always, whenever somebody says cybersecurity, I always say, well, which part or which layer are you talking about here? Are you talking about, specific things that are to do with, the cloud environment? Are you talking about identity type of security and so on? Because the vendors, I think, all tend to specialize in, like I said, in, some of these layers, right? So they're not always kind of, doing everything. Yeah, and I think that's the bit that I find both confusing sometimes and also annoying at the same time.
But I think for any uninitiated person, that's the case right across the IT industry.
Yeah,
You can level the same charge at cloud. What are you doing? What specifically in cloud? Is it public cloud, private cloud, hybrid cloud? Is it a real cloud or a make-believe cloud?
make
Because
me glad. Yeah,
because
yeah,
because clearly some of the marketing is, you think making people believe it's what we would normally term as a cloud. So I think a lot of that, this is a general concern across the IT industry for people who are not IT aware.
yeah.
Sometimes we as an industry fudge the meanings and fudge the terminologies.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I just when I hear it, I'm kind of cringing when people say, "Yeah, we do cybersecurity or something," and then I'm almost immediately, diving into drilling into, okay, but which layer are you on? What do you actually do? Because for me, I want to understand where, what kind of features and functions they're getting. This particular company that I'm talking to, and that could be at, any of the events that I visit, like the Gartner IOCS or the, KubeCon or any of the other sort of, events that I've visited where you have that kind of thing. And there was actually there's a kind of a cybersecurity uh, show in London specifically. I've not covered it before, but I have attended it a couple of times, and it just kind of tends to be quite sort of generic around these sort of types of topics. So anyway,
Right. But
uh,
that's not gonna help you on this report, is it? I mean, because this
no,
report is
no,
very much coming at it from the sort of who's doing it to us type approach.
yeah, yeah, and
Who's
that's fine.
responsible for this and what the hell are they doing?
Yeah.
And what have you got to do then to make sure? But that's at a much higher level than what have you got to do about it?
Yes, yeah, agreed. And yeah, and so it's not covering necessarily kind of the solutions, which I also noticed. Okay, so I mean the insights that I looked at, the report is I think about 85 pages long, 90 pages long, something like that, which is quite useful. And obviously they've had support from Google on it as well, so that's interesting. But I mean one of the things I picked up on is said AI is now a force multiplier for attackers, but it's not yet the root cause of the breaches. So it's kind of helps you to identify vulnerabilities and things like that, and maybe even writes the code of how you can kind of go and attack somebody, but it's not directly involved, so to speak, or not yet. Anyway, so that was interesting. Uh, and yes, I said attackers increasingly use LLMs for hyper-personalized social engineering, evasion, and model extraction. So the quote was state-sponsored and financially motivated actors are integrating AI to accelerate the attack lifecycle. So that
Yeah.
was one of the points. And then it goes on and said, but again, quote unquote, we don't consider 2025 to be the year where breaches were the direct result of AI. So at least up until last year, and we'll see kind of what happens when the report comes out, presumably again next year. We'll see what happens, in 2026. I suspect there will be some, and we'll probably hear about it before the report anyway. So interesting. Now, another one that I picked up on said voice phishing or vishing, as it's called, has exploded. So now the number two initial infection vector. So email phishing is declining, but interactive voice-based attacks are surging. Did you pick up anything on that, Paul? Was there any other details that you noticed on that?
No, I mean, no, I like you. It was interesting. I had to go and sort of look up voice phishing just to
Yeah.
make sure I knew what it was. I was right. It's nothing particularly spectacular.
Mm.
I mean, and then yes, AI is being used to, if you like, bring the target into close focus, but then they still have to use voice. Um, you know, they're basically it's another way of phishing. It's another way of getting people to hand over the credentials.
Yeah.
And that the interesting thing for me is that it's that sort of external approach of getting, you know, credentials from somebody without them realizing what they've just done.
They've done,
It's
yeah.
still the major impact, as opposed to straight exploitation of vulnerabilities in software code.
Mm.
Yes, that happens, and that happens quite a lot. But the major one is your people. It is
Yes.
literally your people being compromised by something that looks really clever or sounds really clever. And you
Mm.
think, oh, okay, that's fine, I'll do that. So I wasn't particularly surprised by that.
Yeah.
So I mean, the thing for me that's picked out all this is I suppose two things really come out for me as a sort of non-practitioner. One was this the sort of the way in which the more complex interconnected world we've got has expanded the attack surface. So, I mean, my
Yeah.
goodness me, go back to the days of mainframes and people saying an IBM mainframe was rarely ever hacked. In fact, I think Burroughs used to say that MCP had never been hacked, but
Yeah.
then it wasn't connected to very much, and so therein lies the challenge, one
Yeah.
of the biggest challenges. So I think that one was really interesting. That actually, it's a huge surface that's got to be defended.
Yes.
Which is a bit worrying. And the second one that came out of this was, I don't think it was explicitly said in there, but you've heard it a number of times in the past. Is almost like there's a war going on, because you've
Yes.
actually got state actors in there.
Yes.
And the one that really brought it home to me was looking at the telco sector and the
Mm.
way in which foreign states were using various techniques to infiltrate and keep in there, long-term presence inside telco networks, and
Yeah.
the way they did it through edge devices, etc., and the way they got in. Um, but it was, it brought to sharp relief the argument that was had 2 or 3 years ago about the use of Huawei technology inside our networks, and actually
Yeah.
having the UK stripping it out.
Yeah.
So, I think most of us go through a sort of, we're aware of the problems of hacking and of malware and all those sort of things, but this level of sophistication going on, and we can go into some more detail about that in some of the things, is quite scary. I mean, it's a bit like watching
Mm.
the news and having the newscaster say the next item contains items you might find
Yeah.
disturbing,
Yeah.
or images or things that you might find
Yeah.
disturbing. Well,
Yeah.
this was disturbing.
Yeah. Indeed. And also, I mean, I guess, kind of one reprieve overall is when we looked at I think it was the aviatrics report that we did a while back. We'll try and
Mm.
kind of drop some screens on this and stuff like that. Obviously, the report will be in the description of the video, guys, so you can go and check it out. But they mentioned they made one interesting point. They said it's one thing to breach like a system and get into and hack into something, but it's quite another to actually do anything with that breach. Because once you're in, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're, especially in a zero trust environment, it's a lot harder to, kind of hack that and then start, for example, siphoning data out and things like that. If that's what what your plan is, or start encrypting or something like that. So that was not a it was kind of a, not a relief, but maybe just a reprieve from the fact that, these things do happen. When they happen, you're almost always, into trouble immediately.
But this report was actually much more blunt than that, I think. That's what sort of brought me up short again was, I mean, we've got to move beyond the assumption that any authenticated human user service account or user service account or third-party integration is inherently safe. So the idea was that zero trust is actually not being implemented particularly well
Tell me
because
about it.
they've assumed
Yeah.
that certain authentication has captured the problems. And we've
Yes.
got situations that we've seen in this report, which people should go and have a look at, where they've managed to get themselves they do two things. One is they get the sort of administrator level authentication capabilities. They
Yeah.
pinch those and get in that. But then they use the management tools. They turn the management tools on themselves, on the company itself.
Right.
So their own management, suite of tools is suddenly turned into a vector of attack.
Yes.
Literally multiplies the effect. I was staggered, to put it mildly.
Yeah, and there's a good reason for that, because those tools have pretty much access to everything, and they're
Right.
trusted by everything, and they probably have either, you know, almost kind of carte blanche when it comes to, their tokens for security, their identity, or at least their identity is, lasts a lot longer. Potentially than other systems that might spin up, do something, get an identity, do their job, and then spin down again. So yeah, I'm not surprised by that. But definitely, I think, I mean, the report's definitely useful for CISOs to kind of see where, the hotspots are, around sort of cybersecurity and class security in general.
The,
Yeah, go ahead.
There was the one I quite like these sort of matrices, but there was a resilience maturity matrix, which I thought was quite
Mm,
useful for people to have a look at.
yeah,
And one axis was how good is, where are you on the prevention, high, low capabilities on the
yeah,
prevention side. More importantly, how good is your recovery?
yeah,
And that was really interesting, the way in which the more mature, threats are coming in and understanding about where the recovery and, the
yeah,
recovery facilities are and disabling those, and destroying those. So it gets
yes,
really difficult
yes.
when you're being sort of ransomed that you can't even go back to a trusted recovery unless you're careful.
And also, would it also be the case because things like cloud environments and even I guess data center platforms, they're just so kind of uniformed, and because of their kind of well architected approach, like how you build a landing zone in a cloud environment, for example, or how what a VMware cluster would look like in a data center, because they're so standardized and uniformed, it's almost a breeze to get in there and know exactly what to look for and how to exploit it, destroy it, or as you said, to turn it against itself, sort of thing, right? Because these things are so standardized, the designs are so
Mm.
standardized. People are saying, well, yeah, it's all well architected, as part of AWS's well architected framework, or Microsoft Azure's WAF, or Google's GCP's WAF, and so on. Yeah, it's all pretty much the same. So every cloud environment is going to be the same. All we got to do is find the one that has the least security, so we can actually breach it and try and get into it. So I think that quite possibly, I'm not sure, I don't think I didn't see it kind of in the report, but that quite possibly is another reason why these kind of, vectors are, getting easier and more to, and increasing in terms of, the different types that you can now have. Now, it also said something about exploits remaining number one sort of initial access vector, with I think about 32% of intrusions start with exploitation of vulnerabilities. It also went on to say this is an interesting. So this is actually something new that I kind of learned. Kind of diving a little bit deeper into this. The dwell time term, which was I think quite interesting. So that's
Mhm.
the amount of time that hackers can actually hang around your environment, or how long have they actually had this sort of hack in your system. So the dwell time. So that dwell time is also apparently increased. So attackers are staying longer and going deeper into into the systems. Um, so the global sort of dwell time has risen from, I think they said 11 days to 14 days from
Yeah,
the previous report.
yeah.
So yeah, interesting term. Interesting. I mean, I think it's straightforward, kind of not.
So
Um,
some of that is down to how quickly can you identify it's going on, and actually
mm,
the hackers are getting better at hiding what they're doing. So some of that dwell time is actually they're in there and you don't even know they're in there.
yeah, yeah. This other one was really interesting. This was another interesting one. So it said ransomware has shifted from stealing the data, so data theft, to just not allowing you to recover it, to recovery denial, as they put it. So that's interesting, saying threat actors now target backups, as you said, identity systems and
Yeah,
virtualization layers, which is what I mentioned, to prevent recovery. So they'll break your Kubernetes cluster, they'll break your VMware vSphere cluster, whatever, and prevent you from recovering it. And every time you try to do that within the same, that same environment, they'll just stop it because, as you said, they might be controlling the management tools or
yeah.
something,
I mean,
right?
you're basically recovering into a situation where they're still in control.
Yeah, yeah,
Really intriguing. But I mean, the other thing that you can sort of wry smile at it, but they're now starting to there are threat actors out there offering ransomware as a service. I mean, I just thought, really?
yeah,
So I mean, it is constantly evolving scenario. It
yeah.
always has been, but it's at speed and with a much larger attack area. So I think it's an interesting challenge. The other one that came up for me, um, which is not unique to cybersecurity, was they call it telemetry gaps, but it was the importance of good asset management. And if you're
Mm,
trying to particularly in the recovery mode, if you're trying to recover and you don't know where all your assets are, one of those might be the ones that's being infected, and actually that can delay or even defeat some of the things you're trying to do to prevent what's going on. So
yeah,
when we're talking asset management now, IT operations people need to understand how important that is, not just from the sort of operational performance point of view, but and cost point of view, but
mm,
from a security point of view. I hadn't realized
yeah,
that. That was new to me.
yeah. Two other ones here. So it said that attackers are increasingly um, attacking legitimate tools. So as you said, kind of management tools and
Yeah,
maybe
yeah.
provisioning, DevOps tools and whatever. And then the other one said 0-day exploits of enterprise platforms are also increasing as well. So um, things like I think the SAP NetWeaver, the CVE for SAP NetWeaver was mentioned, Oracle's e-business suite, Microsoft SharePoint had a CVE. So all of these have kind of been those 0-day exploits. And this, I think, goes to kind of some of the other activities that have happened recently with like Anthropic's Mythos, for example, and identifying this type of thing, and then people being scared, including Anthropic themselves, in terms of
Mm.
how much it can how many exploits it can actually find, with the existing systems, and therefore kind of limiting, access to it at least initially. But yeah, those are interesting ones.
The other one that again we should be aware of, but maybe haven't thought about it quite as much, is this whole sort of supply chain.
Mm,
If you're connecting systems from third parties, into your system and you're integrated with them, you've got this long supply chain of ecosystem of partners. It just again expands the attack vector. You've got to be sure of what's going on inside your, not just your organization, but your partner's organization, because you've got that. And the article I shared with you, which you may not have had a chance to see, I only saw it this morning from LinkedIn, talked about the problems that Ernst and Young had, and
Oh, yes.
where that problem had come from in their supply chain, and the sort of query of, really, you allowed that without, you allowed that interconnection without really understanding what was going on. Interesting. So again, all these things add up to a very complex environment that the security, people responsible for security have got to get to grips with. And the board needs to understand that this is not just a cost. It will, it is a real challenge to your business.
Yeah.
And there'll be certain, and they broke down by industry, by businesses, where the most attacks are coming from. And that wasn't a surprise. It was high tech. It was financial. It was, those were the key two that stood out for obvious reasons. I mean, there's more money to be made and more to learn from them. Telcos as well were obviously a vector too, but there were interesting ones that weren't. I'd have to go away and think about it, but it's probably down to the fact that there was less money to grab out of them and less impact on. I mean, so logistics and supply chain actually was quite low down on the list of targets.
So sometimes, what is that? Sometimes I don't know if the report defines that or distinguishes that or whatever. Sometimes the data, just stealing the data, is the value. So I'm not even interested in asking for a ransom or anything, because the data is the valuable thing. That those, they can then sell that to other parties. That first attacker or hacker can then sell that data, because the data holds the value, not the company necessarily. Yeah. So you could be a nobody that just happens to have a very good government contract, but you're a relatively small company. And there's always those kind of pivotal, companies that you find kind of here and there, and they hold they certainly punch above their weight, right? And certainly in sort of a public sector sort of circles, and so they become pivotal in that way, and they kind of interconnect between different government agencies or departments, whatever. But they themselves are literally you've not really heard of them. They're kind of very specialized or something. But what they hold, or what comes through through their desk, is very important. And then they get hacked for the data, because the value is in the data. The value is not in asking for access to that data again, because the attackers encrypted it or whatever. That's not where the value is extracted. The value is extracted from the actual data, and reselling it or whatever it is that you've been tasked to do, or that you're into doing yourself as a hacker. So I don't think the report kind of distinguished between those, and I would have liked to have seen that. Where is the value sort of moving to? Maybe we can kind of throw it into Copilot and ask Copilot if it can kind of figure that out for us or something. Where is the value here? Is the value, kind of in the data, stealing the data itself, or is it stealing something and just, asking for a ransom for that, and then you get paid the ransom, and then you release, hopefully, the data or whatever it is gets released. So that would have been an interesting one. Couple of other points to mention. So social engineering has diversified across various channels, it said. So messaging apps have kind of picked up. Talked about SaaS impersonation, which is very interesting. Yeah. And then asking for MFA, so multi-factor authentication resets, becoming fraudulent as well. And things like email phishing actually dropping to about, I think it said about 6% from 14% a couple of years ago or something like that. So that's kind of almost over halved, which is interesting. So that's kind of, there's other vectors to look at, I guess. And I didn't see anything about actual kind of AI, chatbots and things like that being discussed. Maybe we'll see that in the
Yeah.
following report for next year, as well as things like AI agents, for example, yeah, and kind of injecting those and hacking those as well, doing some kind of prompt
That,
hacking
that's
around
because
that.
most of the AI agents are really still only in test mode,
Yeah,
rather than
yeah. There's very
once
little
they
of
go
that.
into
Yeah,
live production and they're linked together in a workflow, then that could be very interesting. Is probably the wrong word. It's the Chinese curse of
yeah,
interesting.
yeah.
But anyway,
Yeah. And then, yeah, finally, I think it said third-party SaaS compromise is becoming a major vector as well. So threat clusters increasingly compromise SaaS platforms to pivot then from there into the customer's environment. So I'm presuming that's what that means, is that they're hacking the SaaS provider in order to get into all
yes,
the customers that are, running that
yeah,
SaaS platform.
yeah,
Interesting. Right. Okay. I think we're there, Paul.
yeah.
Again, three interesting topics. Thank you very much for your time and insights. I enjoyed the conversation. I think that was really very useful. We will see what the next episode is going to bring. We'll talk a little bit more about that when it happens. But yeah, appreciate your insights as always. Thank you guys for watching. If you enjoyed this episode and all the topics, please do subscribe to the channel. I really appreciate you if you do that. Trying to hit the sort of the next subscription level. So yeah, really appreciate you helping and supporting the channel by subscribing. Please drop any comments that you have on the topics that we discussed, if you agree or disagree with them. Paul and I are okay to get some disagreements from you. We'll respond to those as well, we promise. And yeah, if any of these kind of topics have been interesting, are you guys using them? Are you kind of embroiled in any of these sorts of things? Is token economics something that's happening to you? Yeah, would be interested in knowing. So please drop us some comments in regards to those. As I said, thank you all for watching, and we'll see you next time. Thank you for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel to support me. You may also want to check out some of the other videos on this channel. Bye for now.